I think it is absolutely clear Bryan Harsin won media days, and it's not what he said, it's how he said it.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. My voice is almost shot, but man, what an incredible week at SEC Media Days. And yesterday, what an incredible day for the Auburn Tigers. Bryan Harsin won SEC Media Days. The trend all offseason for the Auburn Tigers has been down, 5-7, lucky to make a bowl game. That trend over the last week at SEC Media Days, I think it's gone. I think it's behind us. But first things first, Bryan Harsin will join the show in a few minutes, but we got to react to what he said on the main stage. We have to do that. He stepped up and the rain started pouring down, and then he started taking his shots.
Second time here, and excited to be here. And I know some of you out there looking at me didn't expect me to be here.
So as soon as I heard that, as soon as he said that, I thought, well, when I predicted, okay, this is what Bryan Harsin needs to do to win SEC Media Days last week when we did the show, or I guess it was on Monday, I said he needs to not acknowledge what happened earlier in the offseason, and he needs to keep it all about football. Football, this roster, the depth chart, keep it all about the team. And seconds into his discussion, he brings up or refers to what happened earlier this offseason. And boy, I was wrong. And man, Bryan Harsin was absolutely right. Here's why this is a big deal. Obviously, it's good if you acknowledge everything that happened, the debacle. It didn't work. I'm still here. I want to be the head coach at Auburn. That's fantastic. But the biggest thing in all of this is that the Bryan Harsin we saw yesterday is not the Bryan Harsin we saw 365 days ago. He's adapting. The first year in the SEC, he has risen above all of it. And that's what we said on this show when all the stuff was happening in February, was the best case scenario was Bryan Harsin makes it out of this and he learns from everything that happened in his first season at Auburn. And we did it. We saw that yesterday. Here's what he really said that was just like, wow, this guy's ticked off. This guy's frustrated. And he's okay putting it out there.
There was an inquiry. It was uncomfortable. It was unfounded. And it presented an opportunity for people to, personally attack me, my family, and also our program. And it didn't work. So right now, our focus is on moving forward. And what came out of that inquiry were a lot of positive. There was a silver lining in all of this, because what I saw from our players and our coaches was leadership opportunities for them to step up, which is exactly what they did.
And it didn't work. He's calling out the folks. He's calling out the folks that came after him. And he said, hey, the powers that be, some of them wanted me gone. And it didn't work. So for all the folks that say he doesn't want to be at Auburn, you cannot say that anymore. You can't. You absolutely can't. But the craziest thing that happened yesterday wasn't even all of that. Bryan Harsin, it's a different person. This is a guy that Auburn was late leaving. There were so many folks that wanted to talk to Coach Harsin and these players that they were late leaving. And I think 365 days ago, they would have just left on time. And most people wouldn't have blamed him for it. But he spent a few minutes with everybody that wanted to talk to him. You talk about wanting to be more approachable. You talk about likability. He's going on everybody's favorite radio show or podcast that showed up to Atlanta to hear him talk. He wouldn't have done that 365 days ago. And you think about the narrative that emerged February, with all of the disaster essentially that Auburn put itself through. The biggest thing was how unlikable Bryan Harsin was, right? That's what everybody said. Nobody wants to play for him. Nobody wants to work for him. And as I was leaving SEC Media Days yesterday, I heard 3 different shows. One was a relevant market. 2 were just folks outside of it, outside of the state of Alabama. They were talking about how likable and how it was impossible not to love Bryan Harsin. This turn is incredible, and it's been perfectly crafted by Bryan Harsin, by the leaders, and we'll hear from John Samuel Shenker later in today's show. We'll hear from Derick Hall next week. I mean, just folks that are speaking up on behalf of this team, on behalf of this locker room. There is just so much to like about the current state of Auburn football at this point in the offseason. A lot of things changed in the last week. I think a lot of things changed, and I'll touch on more of that in just a moment. But first things first, I asked Bryan Harsin when he sat down with me on Radio Row for a few minutes. I asked him what the biggest difference was from this year to from last year, and also give me an ideal timeline for the starting quarterback decision. And I think his answer is pretty interesting. That coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the best place for all of your sports wagering. MLB will be back next week from the All-Star break. There will be a ton of live betting opportunities. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing if lines move at all for futures and win totals after media week season, after the talking season is over. So be sure to check all that out at BetOnline, where the game starts. And joining us now here on Locked On Auburn, Auburn head football coach Bryan Harsin. Coach, now versus a year ago, this is your second SEC Media Days. What's the biggest difference between the two?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of the same questions and
Sure.
a lot of the same things about just expectations. But I think it's more about our team. I think it's more about knowing our football team better coming into this event than I did before. And so let me just say something about SEC Media Days. You guys all do such a phenomenal job of just getting the coaches in, being very efficient. I think there's a lot of great questions that are asked here, and you're gathering information for the season. And so, I completely understand that. But our biggest difference is we know our football team better, and we got great leadership now here representing us. Tank Bigsby, John Samuel Shenker, all right, Derick Hall. I mean, those guys are phenomenal people that are doing a great job representing us. So it's really just about us. We know our team. We know what we've been doing. We know the things that are important to us, and we're ready to get ready. We're ready to get started in fall camp and get things going. And this is just that event every single year that just reminds you, like, it's coming.
Right.
And that's where we are right now. So once I leave here and get off the plane, it's going to be like, okay, it's time.
Yep, absolutely. Coach, I'm sure you're tired of getting questions about this, but the quarterback battle, what's the ideal timeline for figuring out who wins the job?
Yeah, whenever it's right. Yeah.
Sure.
It's I've heard something a long time ago, my dad and drag racing and all that. Do you want it right or do you want it right now? It's just,
Sure.
It's one of those things. So we're going to get it right. Those guys are working very hard. We have awesome young men that are competing at that position, and they all have their strengths, and they're all doing a lot of things to really improve in some areas they need to. But once we get into the end of fall camp, we'll make that decision going into the first game, and we'll announce it, and we'll make sure everybody knows. And you got to do that properly too. I think it's earned, by the players at that position as well. But at the same time, it's really who goes out there and wins it, because nobody's really going to lose that. It's just a matter of getting out there, winning it. And those other guys always have to stay ready and prepared. So in my opinion, we got some really good options at the quarterback position. And those guys, they've been working extremely hard to put themselves in a position to win that competition.
Thank you, Coach, for your time. Best of luck to you.
All right. Thank you, War Eagle.
Great stuff from Bryan Harsin. Yeah, it wasn't super specific as far as the timeline. That makes sense. I don't think that surprises anyone, but still really, really cool to finally get him on. That was nice of him to do that. Something that I thought was interesting, and I haven't aired all of these. I've recorded them all, but at media days, and I've aired like Takeo Spikes and Joe Tessitore and Mr. College Football Tony Barnhart. They've all been on the show this past week, and then like Peter Burns, I talked to him. He'll be on the show next week. But I'm asking all of them, like, what are proper expectations for this football team? And guys, the majority of folks that I'm now talking to that are saying, all right, they're college football experts. They supposedly know more about this sport than anyone else. Is they're now saying 8-4, like across the board. And this is a change that I think's happened over like the last 2 weeks. Phil Steele put out his magazine, and he was higher on Auburn than most folks are. And all of a sudden, you're seeing more and more access to some of these college football experts, that work for SEC Network and ESPN. And you ask them what proper expectations should be, not what the upside of the season could be, but proper expectations for a fan base. And pretty much across the board, they're saying 8-4. And just weeks ago, it was 5-7, lucky to make a bowl game. This is just a trend that, to be honest, I did not see coming. And I don't really know what's happened outside of, because I did all of these before Bryan Harsin spoke, so it wasn't anything like that. But I think people are starting to gain faith in Zach Calzada. I think folks are starting to look at all of the returning experience on both sides of the football on this roster, offense and defensive line. And there's folks that are now starting to talk themselves into the fact that Auburn can overachieve based on, this 5-7 mark. Vegas listed them at 5.5 on BetOnline. It's now moved to 6, but I still think people are hitting the over on that. And, this pivotal game, game 3, when Auburn hosts Penn State, pretty much everybody that actually literally everyone I talked to about that game, whether they came on this show or I went on their show and we talked about this matchup, because Auburn-Penn State is huge. Everyone I spoke to, easily double-digit amount of shows that discuss this, they all pick Auburn to win that game. And just to me, the trend has totally reversed from where it was a few weeks ago. And it doesn't matter. This doesn't matter, but I've said this a million times. Auburn and Bryan Harsin are fighting a perception battle. And I think the perception this week tilted in Auburn and Bryan Harsin's favor. And that is a win. That is absolutely a huge, huge, huge win. Some other notes that I think are worth mentioning. Bryan Harsin talked to local media before taking the main stage at SEC Media Days. Official reporting for camp will be on August 4th, and then they will start their first practice on August 5th. Not a super big deal, but the fact of we're 2 weeks away from fall camp is super, super exciting, and it's so close. And then the last member of this roster will be Keontae Scott, and he will be done and graduated and academically good to go to start fall camp on time. And then he was asked about injuries, and the only one I believe that he mentioned was Craig McDonald. He's got a minor ankle injury, the transfer from Iowa State that I'm really, really high on. He's really the only one that they highlighted that had a minor injury, but I bet he practices. He may just have a yellow jersey on. So really, really, all in all you're missing a few scholarship players just because they didn't really fill out the roster, but they're dang close. But the fact that they're so healthy is tremendous, absolutely tremendous. But those were a few notes that he gave local media before taking the main stage. John Samuel Shenker, Auburn tight end, joins the show next right here on Locked On Auburn. And now joining us here on Locked On Auburn, Auburn tight end John Samuel Shenker. Welcome back on the show in person this time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's finally good to be face-to-face.
Yeah, absolutely, bud. Absolutely. Media days, is it what you expected?
More actually. It was kind of a whirlwind at first, bouncing from section to section, but now it's pretty cool just bouncing around these radio stations and getting to talk to everyone and all the Auburn representatives as well. So it's been awesome.
That's cool, man. That's cool. What did it mean when the coaching staff asked you if you wanted to do this?
Well, they asked me the week of my wedding, and I was like, that's great, but I have a little more I need to work on right now. And so right after my wedding, Coach Harsin reached out and told me that I was invited. He invited me, and that's such an honor, especially from your head coach.
Totally.
To be able to represent Auburn here. And what a memory. I mean, I'll remember this, being able to come here.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome to be a part.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So a big talking point that's emerged from Coach Harsin's comments earlier today was about how, after all the stuff that happened earlier this offseason happened, this team became really unified. And you talked about this on the show a few months ago, but how has that trend continued now that spring is behind us and you guys are kind of working out throughout this summer?
Yeah. And like I said before, I think it was a huge plus for us. And it brought everyone together because we're all pushing for the same thing. We all wanted Coach Harsin to come back.
Right.
And we knew that was best for Auburn and best for our team this year. And when that happened, we realized what we had and the love that we had for each other was growing. And to have that now and to be pushing towards a season, and we're into summer, and we've had a great summer. And everybody's on the same page, and everybody enjoys coming to workouts and enjoying practice. And that's when you have that, it creates a loving and amazing environment, and that creates success. And that's what we're looking for.
So obviously there's leaders that, the three of you that are here today, you, Tank, Derick. Who else has kind of stepped up and been a vocal leader this offseason?
Well, I would say, Anders Carlson, I think, is one of our best leaders. And you might not see it a lot because, as a kicker, you don't get the light as much on day-to-day workouts and things. But I think he's such a leader on our team. The way he's come back from his ACL. And
how's he doing with that?
He's doing great. He is doing great. I'm sure y'all have seen some videos. He is kicking. He's doing well.
Good.
And, just a testament to his hard work and what his trust in the Lord and ability to come back and hopefully be completely healthy by the season. But then you got Nick Brahms as well. And then on the defensive side, you got Nehemiah Pritchett, Jalen Simpson, Owen Papo, who's a great leader on our team, a team captain last year, Colby Wooden. There's so many guys, so many veteran guys that you can lean on that'll help with this team and throughout the season. Even Echo Leota, who's only been here a year and a half now.
Yeah, that dude's an absolute unit, man.
Dude, that guy, he put on some weight, and he's the real deal now.
Yeah, him and
totally
different.
Him and D Hall. Good luck. Not to block him every day, but you got to block him on Saturdays.
Oh, then one of those guys comes off the field. Dylan Brooks is coming at you.
Yes, exactly. So, I love our edge guys, our D-line. But, yeah, just the hard work that we put in this offseason is really going to show.
Dude, that fly is all over you, man. What's going on with that?
I don't know.
This tight end room, though, it's loaded. It's loaded so much that Landon King moved to wide receiver.
Yeah, that was best. We thought for our team because he is a good wide receiver and he can help us in that area.
Yeah.
But yeah, our tight end room, it's awesome. To be a part of that and we're pushing each other so much and we played with each other so long.
Sure.
That now you have the opportunity to do it one more time, and knowing what we did last year and how we can capitalize on that is truly something we do not take for granted. We're very excited about that.
Who's somebody in the tight end room that we're not talking about?
Brandon Frazier. I think everyone talks about Fromm and Deal.
Sure.
But Frazier he's an unbelievable talent. He's 6'7",
he's so
long guy,
yeah.
athletic, can catch the ball, can block. He's going to be a huge part of it this year. We have 4 guys. We could run 4 tight end personnel if we want to. That's just our confidence.
And even the future of the position with Micah.
Yeah, it's deep. And Coach Bedell's done a great job of being able to utilize that. And he keeps working hard on recruiting and things like that. But it's a special group. We're very excited about our opportunity.
Everybody's kind of counting you guys out right now. Is that something you guys feed off of? Do you even pay attention to it? Is it even discussed, or is it kind of message board material? How do you guys handle all that?
Yeah, we don't really talk about it. We understand where we see it, right? But we focus on what we can work on, what we can get better at, and we have the guys on the team that we've known that have been here for so long. They experienced last year and understand what happened. We were 6-2, sitting very comfortably, and just fell off. And to have guys that are still here that know that feeling, Tank, D Hall, and all the other guys that were here last year, I think that's a big advantage for us going into this year. Is knowing what we did last year and how to fix it.
Totally. Thank you for your time, man. Congrats for everything, for the wedding, and obviously this upcoming season is going to be great for you.
Thank you very much, War Eagle.
Thank you so much to John Samuel Shenker. Thank you so much to Coach Bryan Harsin. And thank you so much to the SEC for hosting an outstanding week of SEC Media Days. Hope you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, come back next week because there's a ton of other stuff. Derick Hall, Roger McCreary, and several other folks like Peter Burns that I spoke to that I did not have time to just jam all this content into just 5 shows this past week. So more stuff will come on Monday. We will see you then. Until then, check out the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. Ton of information in there. Constant Auburn chatter happening in there. Just search in the episode description down below and click the link. Super easy. All of my written work, auburndaily.com. And until Monday, this has been Locked On Auburn.